Welcome to the Hill Country Water Summit for 2020. I'm Tom Taggart. I'm Director of Public Services for the City of San Marcos. And my topic today is about wastewater treatment for urban subdivisions using package plants, one municipal perspective. An increasing number of subdivision developments propose decentralized from municipal utilities wastewater treatment with package plants and apply for TPDES permits. These developments are often in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of cities. They may be in areas that are opted out of existing CCNs. The Texas legislature provided for the ability for developers to opt out land if they're in excess of 25 acres if they've not been previously served from existing CCNs. I wanted to go through some of the pros and cons associated with package plants. As you might well expect, there's a number of different opinions about which are pros and which are cons. It all depends on one's viewpoint. But I did want to go through some of the things that I believe are most relevant in relation to package plants. Some of the pros are that they are centralized versus large lot individual septic systems. I think that they are superior to having individual septic systems on each individual lot, although acreage requirements in most counties limit the density that you can achieve with septic systems alone. Package plants can be configured to produce high effluent water quality levels. They can certainly produce very high quality levels, much as other wastewater treatment plants can. They're relatively cost competitive when connection distances to regional plants are very long or gradient challenged. So if it's very far flung from the centralized plants that are available, it could be cost effective. They're pre-engineered, so little developer knowledge is required related to design, construction, or technology requirements. A lot of these are skid-based. The designs are pretty much standard and ubiquitous, and very little special customization to a given subdivision is required. So that makes these easy to acquire and install for the most part. One pro that is viewed by developers, I think, is that they may not be required to comply with municipal requirements that may be tied to providing utility service. For example, annexation or impact fees are common features of the ability to obtain utility service from municipalities or larger systems. Some of the cons of package plants from the perspective of the City of San Marcos are that they're anathema to Texas legislation, which encourages utility regionalization. Our legislature has required that TCEQ consider regionalization when they're evaluating TPDES applications for package plant permits. These plants cannot achieve the economies of scale of municipal utility systems. When you're treating millions of gallons a day, you obviously can achieve certain advantages in terms of the economies of scale associated with that activity. These small plants cannot achieve those same economies. These plants are typically unmanned. In fact, virtually all package plants are unmanned. So any upsets or anything that goes wrong in relation to operations of these plants may take longer to resolve. They may or may not be detected early on. The systems that are designed to alert operators of problems may or may not function. Completely different than in a manned plant where there's constant surveillance of the incoming influent and the operation of all of the various stages of treatment. These are located individually at each subdivision. So this, over time, could create many discharge points, with those discharges flowing through the surrounding neighborhoods in an urbanized environment. In the event of any kind of upsets, that would mean that you could have very dense urban areas with untreated sewage or partially treated sewage flowing through the watersheds in those neighborhoods. We believe that to be a con in relation to these plants. They may be controlled by MUDs or HOAs or other groups that might lack the financial, managerial, and technical capability and resident representation in relation to their ownership and operation. We do think that that is a significant con in relation to these, and we've seen many news stories over the years that talk about the problems encountered when HOAs or others that have MUDs or other utility systems that are at a neighborhood level, when they fail to operate or plan or work through the financial, managerial, and technical requirements associated with providing that service. Very often municipalities are asked to step in and assume ownership and operation of those systems after those failures. These plants may emit unpleasant odors directly into neighborhoods because the treatment plant is located directly in the neighborhood, which can cause customer complaints. Very often they complain to the cities that are located close to them, and especially in the event of them considering themselves residents for the people living in the neighborhood. Contracted operators for these plants may or may not adequately operate or be scaled for quick response to failures with multiple system responsibilities. It's not uncommon to see a given firm have multiple operation requirements for many different package plants that are widely far-flung in the urban environment. So their ability with one or two people that are on shift at a point in time to do a rotation or respond to any given physical location if there's a problem could be less than adequate for operation and response to problems that arise at those plants. Package plants also prevent centralized reuse at a scale for industrial or other purposes. Part of the water solution for our future in Texas is to reuse the water supplies that we have more than once. Very often these are for industrial scale uses such as cooling or irrigation of areas like golf courses or for other industrial purposes like dust control or stack quench at kilns. That's not really possible with package treatment plants. It does prevent centralized reuse, which is a very important part of our water future. It prevents future highest use of resources also in a similar manner. We're going to reuse our water supplies in the future probably to arrive at direct or indirect potable reuse of some of that resource. And this being scattered through multiple package plants and discharge points would prevent that future highest use of these resources. In circumstances of failed utilities, as I mentioned, cities may be asked by the state to assume ownership or operation of these utilities, which we think is an undue and unfair burden on our ratepayers, given that they've actually not had any responsibility in relation to those plants historically. And in instances of significant excursions or failures, as I indicated, it may actually pose health risks directly in neighborhoods and be damaging to the environment. Not just the local environment there in those watersheds, but in the event that these flows are getting to our streams and rivers, certainly may have environmental impacts there also. So the city of San Marcos opposes use of our package plants in our ETJ, and we've protested issuance of TPDES permits in accordance with Section 70.052A10 of the city's Code of Ordinances, which states that the city discourages the use of sewage package treatment plants. The protests are for the following additional and related reasons. Protection of our environment and rivers, which is certainly a core value of the city of San Marcos, with the San Marcos River originating here and being home to numerous endangered species that we very much seek to protect. We also protest to support state legislative direction for regionalization of wastewater services. We think that the legislature has indicated this is a superior public policy choice to having individual package treatment plants serving neighborhoods. We do want to maintain and prevent any impacts on the quality of life in subdivisions served and neighboring properties due to odors or discharge flows that could be problematic in those neighborhoods. Package plants also are protested because they strand invested city money in system capacities already installed. When we install sewer interceptors and size those, it's not done based upon just CCN area or physical geography of a given neighborhoods. It basically, as a gravity system, is designed on the basis of the sewer sheds and elevations that are associated with the geography. And that requires us, in many cases, to oversize these lines when they're first installed, so we know that they have adequate capacity to serve those sewer shed areas without having to replace piping with multiple larger versions as things grow over time. So package plants may strand a lot of those investments where we've made those kinds of investments for future service. Potential failures can create health threats, and we want to avoid that. That's a reason for our protest of these. Certificate of Convenience and Necessity, CCN coverage of our extraterritorial jurisdiction could limit expansion of our utility systems into our preferred growth areas that we have planned for in the future. Certainly east of I-35 is where we're seeing significant growth currently. And we would not like to see other utilities expand CCN areas into that ETJ. We think that allowing these permits to go unchallenged would tend to establish a precedent for all ETJ developers, and we'll provide some more information on that here as far as what that looks like here in our city. The loss of utility and general fund revenues and prevention of customer rate-based growth, we think, would be something that is a good reason for protest of these permits. We think that the economies of scale are beneficial to all of our customers and actually the residents of these new developing areas versus operation of multiple package treatment plants. And we also are protesting these in part for the loss of the ability for centralized reuse and possible future potable reuse of return flows to our water plant. So I thought a good example here would be to show you our eastern area that's east of I-35 here in San Marcos. This is a very busy map, but I'll try to talk through this as well as I can. You might see here that these text blocks embedded in this map show the subdivisions that currently are being developed that have discussed or have actually applied for and are in process of having TPDS applications under consideration and processing by TCEQ. You can see that starting at the Highway 80 there and the area adjacent to the river, there are actually two subdivisions, the Riverbend Ranch HK subdivision and the Mayan subdivision just to the southeast of that, and the Riley's Point subdivision, which is also an HK subdivision, that are very close to the San Marcos River there. In fact, two of those subdivisions abut it. The Mayan actually has agreed to be served by the city at this point. HK is still pursuing a package plant TPDES permit. Fleming Farms, which is located in the center lower left of this map, is also seeking a discharge permit. The Yakovich and Perry Capital Partners development is pretty far out. They're also seeking a package plant permit, as well as Independence Trail that is in the far left there of that map area that is developing just across the street, actually, from an area that is already in the city limits, and a package plant that sits just across the street, or a package plant, a lift station sits just across the street that was actually sized to handle flows from that sewer shed area, which would include the Independence Trail subdivision area. And they are pursuing, though, a package plant instead of connection to that lift station and our centralized collection system. So to give you an idea in relation to impacts of our ability to achieve economies of scale and to benefit all the ratepayers, including any new ratepayers, in achieving economies of scale, you can see that our wastewater system, the number of existing connections that we have is about 11,417. You see the wastewater connection count in LUEs here by each of the respective subdivisions I've just discussed. You can see that they're fairly significant in size in several cases, and they total about 5,579 LUEs connections, which would basically expand our wastewater system by about 50% just looking at the land area of the subdivisions that were shown on the attached map. So what does that mean in relation to revenues to our system? The wastewater revenues, assuming that these homes would use the average monthly residential usage of about 5,500 gallons, the revenue for wastewater would be approximately $4.5 million annually. And of that, in our system, we pay a franchise fee to the city of San Marcos, to the general fund. That would equate to about $363,000 annually. And these are the things that help our residents achieve the economies of scale from centralized wastewater service, and also help to hold down their property taxes. If there's any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer those. I can be reached through the Guadalupe Basin Coalition, or my email address here in San Marcos isttaggart@sanmarcostx.gov. Thank you.